here we are at Gwanghwamun.
Yep.
Yeah, we see Gwanghwamun, the famous Gwanghwamun.
The famous Gwanghwamun.
You know,
Yeah.
I didn't realize how big of like a deal Gwanghwamun was to Koreans until I just realized like every time we were going by, there's always like something going on here. Like it's very rare. Right now, there's no events, but there's like always events. Like because we live that way, and in order to get there, we always have to drive past here, and like they're like showing shit up a screen and watch movies, like all these things going on. But I think for me, the biggest kind of wow moment was last year Korea had their like military parade, which they haven't had in like 7 years or something, and this whole street was blocked off, and the president spoke right in front of Gwanghwamun. So he had his podium there and all the military, you know, kind of. And so I think kind of like what I realized through that was, wow, like I think symbolically this is the center of Korea. Like the Seoul is the center of Korea, and then amongst in Seoul, that is the center.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, it's funny that you live here because this is just like, I mean, obviously it has a lot of impact and it's very like, you know, important in terms of what it means to people. But because of that, it's jam-packed with people nonstop. So just living here, I can only imagine like it's got to be challenging, right?
I mean, challenging in the sense of traffic.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Dude, no, like not only traffic, like right around here, I think because it is the symbolic kind of center of Korea, at least I could be wrong, but that's what it seems like it. I've seen people do demonstrations. So
every single weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Korea has this history of demonstrating. So
Right.
they demonstrated against the Japanese occupation in the early 1900s, and so it's part of their culture.
Yep.
And I think that's what I didn't realize when I came initially. And then I started seeing them chanting, and it's like the classic like one person says blah 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 blah, and other people chant back. And I'm like, this is so weird. Why did they do this? And then as I started like looking into Korean history, I'm like, oh, this is very like it's like a historical thing. I'm still learning, but
yeah. But did the real estate broker ever warn you about that this was what you're getting yourself into when you moved here?
It was kind of a crazy story of how I got it. I'll tell you later. But cool. So funny enough, by the way, like I would say the audience is probably minimum at least us.
Okay.
So we can remember our conversation, and others if they're interested. But you know, I started this and I was starting to like hype myself up, like, oh, you know, how am I gonna make business? And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna throw all that out. I'm just gonna chill because I just like enjoy having conversations. And I forget if I tell you this before, but what I realized is in Korea, I was just meeting all these interesting people, especially like non-Koreans who are here in Korea. If you're here as a non-Korean, like you have an interesting story. You have an interesting story. So I'm meeting all these people and I'm like, man, I would love to share these conversations with others. And that's kind of like what was born of it.
It's the genesis.
Yeah, and kind of the broader theme is, this is under the channel of learning entrepreneur.
Okay.
So it's this idea where I found like the hardest part about entrepreneurship is the getting started part. It's like the fear of getting started. And so I'm like, you know, I know a bunch of these entrepreneurs around me. Why don't I talk with them? Whether, because people have like either they're afraid to get started, or if they did get started, then they have like imposter syndrome because they're comparing themselves with other more successful entrepreneurs. And so it seems like general people's definition of entrepreneurs is like the Toss CEO, the Coupang CEO, Bezos. But if that's the standard, then almost nobody is an entrepreneur. And so this is like for a presentation I gave, and I'm just like, you know, I think that if you're learning, because at the core of what entrepreneurs do is they solve problems. And to solve problems, they have to learn. They have to learn about the customer. They have to learn about the market. So I'm like, if you're learning, like I consider that an entrepreneur. So that's how I was like, learning entrepreneur. And they're like, I might not be the Bezos entrepreneur. I might not be the Elon Musk entrepreneur, but I am learning. Like I'm a learning entrepreneur. So that was the idea of this. Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I think at the core of entrepreneurship, there's also a big important piece of that is pain. And usually pain is the result of learning. You know, you learn and there's going to be some pain associated with that learning, because it's usually uncomfortable when you're learning something.
Yeah.
Because honestly speaking, people don't like to be in a, you know, unfamiliar territory, but that's where the learning comes in. The learning comes when you're in something unfamiliar. When you're trying to learn math, you don't I mean, unless you're like a genius, you don't naturally know that, okay, this is how
Oh,
it's supposed to go.
super relevant because I just came from we homeschool our kids,
Uh-huh.
and my son like is learning math and it's painful.
Yeah, it's pain.
And so like I see him right now just like, I don't want to do this.
It's pain. It's pain. And that's been the biggest core piece of the puzzle for me for entrepreneurship. And it's not to discourage anyone from being an entrepreneur. It's more so just being aware that it's there
Yeah.
and accept that
Yeah.
that's the cool part about
Yeah.
learning. You
Yeah.
you start learning and then some of the pain goes away, but then it replaces itself with new pain because you need to learn more.
Man. So, I mean, I only met you like 2 days ago,
Mhm.
but I've seen your name on the chat, chat rooms and stuff. Like I've seen you. I told you I saw the newspaper, article with you, with
Yeah,
your leg
yeah,
up
yeah.
and the helmet. And so I know you have one of your businesses is a food delivery.
That's right.
But like, yeah. What do you do? Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm, an American, born and raised there.
And your name is
Jason Boutte,
Jason, okay.
right? And so I grew up in Louisiana. I spent almost my entire, from childhood up until basically college. I went to college at LSU, Louisiana State University, and
Sorry, where in Louisiana? Where are you?
I'm from Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Lake Charles. Okay, I've only
Right.
been to New Orleans.
Okay.
I'm
My family's from New Orleans, but we basically, my family from before I was born decided to move from New Orleans into Lake Charles, and so I grew up there.
where's Lake Charles relative to New Orleans?
Lake Charles is like more close to Texas.
Oh, okay, so it's west.
Yep, that's
Got it,
right.
got it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, I still have a lot of roots in New Orleans, so I go back a lot. That's where I went to do my MBA, was in New Orleans, so spent a lot of time there. But Lake Charles probably is more what you'd consider, when you think about America, you think Americana, these towns, and, where you grow up there and everyone knows most of each other, and
Well,
that's kind of more of that vibe.
It generally happens with smaller towns.
Yep.
So I'm assuming Lake Charles is a smaller town?
Yes, I think we have about 70 to 80,000 people.
Okay.
Nothing too big.
Do you know your neighbors?
Yeah, of course. I know my entire street.
Smaller town.
Yeah. When you're in a town like that, you know everyone on oh, that's Mrs. Vital from, so and so, or that's Mr. Harris, or this, so many people that are on your street that basically never move. So you know them all the way up until their kids take over and move into the house. So.
What's the mix of ethnicities? Is it mostly white, black, other Asians?
Well, on my street, it's mostly black, but Lake Charles is a kind of a cool blend of like it's starting to kind of get more blended. When I lived there, it was pretty much just white and black, but now you're starting to see Hispanic and Asian, and we're starting to see a whole different group. So when I get back there, it's actually quite cool to see that it's kind of developing into its own thing.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't have many memories. I was in the military, and when there was a base in New Orleans. So I remember like I went there once for a conference. Like I know it's known for Mardi Gras and stuff like that. And my separate memory is me and my wife were driving through, and I'm like, I heard what are they well known for? And it's Cajun.
Yeah, for sure.
Just like it's like I don't know what exactly the seasoning is, but it's some type of seasoning, kind of salty, spicy. I don't know.
Spicy, definitely.
Okay, and then we stopped at this joint where it was like we drive up. I don't even remember the details, but what I do remember, it was in a styrofoam like package.
Okay.
And so we just opened it up, styrofoam to go. We open it up, and there is crawfish.
Oh.
And it was like Cajun crawfish.
Oh.
And I remember I'm like, what the heck is this? So kind of you suck on it, and you get the seasoning, and then you break off the head.
Yeah, man.
And then it's like mini shrimp, I guess.
You know your stuff. Yeah, that's exact. I mean, For us, that's like our lifestyle. So it's like we have seasons for crawfish that we get super excited for and we look forward to all year. It's just food is such a big part of our culture.
Yeah.
Like we're obsessed with food in Louisiana. Like everything revolves around food. Like we have a certain season for every single type of food that's important to us.
Like there's, like food is everything. Like give me like a kind of concrete example so I can understand.
You just hit it with a perfect one. But I mean, we have so many dishes that are just like really indigenous to our area that if you go outside of, when you think about American food, that's the cool part about traveling abroad is I get to see what people think when they hear American food. So when you hear like people who are from a different place from America, they'll say stuff like, oh, Americans eat hot dogs and burgers and pizza. And I'm like, well, actually, where I'm from in the United States, like we'll eat gumbo, etouffee, we'll eat jambalaya, we'll do crawfish boils where we'll gather up all the people in the neighborhood and we'll just throw like a huge, kind of party or like, a little thing that people can have at their home. So these are all so important to kind of our identity, the food part of it,
Why is that? Like, I think that's like a very interesting point. Like, it's important part of our identity. Like, what does that mean to you? Like, what does that mean?
Well, to be completely blunt, I think it is one of those things where you want to hold on to something. People are tribalistic, I believe. I believe we've always been like that since the days when we were in caves. And for the most part, it was helpful because the world's a scary place. Back in the day when we were just trying to, survive, you would say, oh man, let's make sure we stay together, let's stay close so that we have an identity that we belong to each other. And if you go to sleep, I'll protect you if a saber-toothed tiger comes through and tries to eat you, so you can actually get some rest, so you can go hunting. And that's the mentality to me of why tribes make sense. And to this day, it's still in us. It's still in our DNA. So when it comes to Louisiana, that's tribalism. What's a part of something that we believe is true to us? Oh, we make good food. And everyone's kind of said that that's true, so we believe it. And so that's part of what, connects us. And so we'll never let that go.
So I guess it's not only, because for example, like, let's say New Orleans has, or Louisiana has like specific 5 dishes. But if everybody in the world has the same 5 dishes, then I would say that it's not part, it doesn't make you unique. So I feel like identity has to be, it not only says we are the same, but while at the same time we are different than others.
Yeah.
So you're saying kind of like the food in Louisiana. Another way to put it, you can meet someone randomly here in Seoul and you find out they're from Louisiana. What are the first things that you would say?
You start getting into it about food. You say, oh man, I bet you missed this. I bet you missed that.
What you missed?
What's your solution for not having crawfish? Oh, I'll usually boil shrimp at my house because they have shrimp in Korea. So there's all these little ways and tactics to kind of make sure, hey, you belong to my tribe, right? You know what I'm dealing with, right? And so in a way, tribalism obviously can be very negative, but it's also inviting. It's communal. It's trying to connect people, but it's also pushing people away. I mean, the truth is, I don't think there's a single, group of people in the world that doesn't kind of adhere to this because it's so ingrained in our, it's hardwired from the old days of our early ancestors of human beings. And in a lot of ways it's good, and in some ways it's bad. So when you talk about football teams, I don't know if you like sports, but I went to LSU. Huge football school.
They're huge on like football.
Huge. Like we're like a top program. So for us, that's a part of our identity. So when it's football season, we get all our, gear and put it on.
What is the gear?
I mean,
jerseys,
hats, t-shirts, hoodies, name it. I mean, if you ever go to, even the stadium's name is Death Valley. I mean, that tells you everything about like how serious these people take it, and I'm part of it. I can't even like try to say the people. I'm one of those people. So, that's a part of like, again, tribalism. That's our tribe. If I see someone right now walking past us, he's wearing an LSU hat, I might have to stop the interview and say, hey man, so what, you go to school there? So that's part of, again, connecting with people.
So I think you're touching on it. I'm just kind of want to dig a little bit deeper. So that someone walks by with an LSU hat on, And immediately, what do you feel inside?
Well, the fact that they're in Korea, Seoul, South Korea, a million miles away from our alma mater, that's like, okay, what are you doing here? What are you up to? And why are you here wearing that hat?
It stirs like a sense of like, is it just pure curiosity?
It's a mixture of, okay, well, that's my tribe. So
That's my
bare
tribe.
minimum, I need to
They're
at
my
least
people.
acknowledge my people and say,
Okay.
hey, you went to, okay, you know about my school. We both know about my school. Let's connect on that.
It's like a magnetism.
Mhm.
It's almost like a magnetic force that like draws you.
Mm.
I almost feel like there's two analogies that come to my head. One is yesterday, I don't know if you know, SpaceX launched their first commercial mission, and it's the first commercial in history where a non-governmental organization, SpaceX, sent civilian astronauts out, and they left their space capsule. They did a spacewalk, which my daughter's like, they didn't walk anywhere. They just like popped their head out, and they were just like doing this. And she's like, what the heck are they doing? And what you know, obviously she's in third grade, she doesn't realize this, but they were testing their suits. But it's the first time they had to like depressurize the cabin and then open the gasket, blah 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 blah. But it was the first time that had happened, and so, and it's just them four, and the Earth, and then space, and I think like, I don't know, if you were just like lost in space, and you see anyone, like you'd feel like a force to be like, hey,
Yes.
hey,
Yes.
I'm a human.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly my point. So, again, to just touch on tribalism, there's a certain small tribe of people who've actually experienced that. A tiny portion of the entire human population throughout history who can say, I've been out in actual space, not on Earth,
Yeah.
but I'm out in actually
Yeah.
experiencing what space feels like.
Yeah.
And so when those people see other people who've done that,
Yeah.
of course there's a connection,
Yeah.
man. You
Yeah.
can't help but be a connection.
I remember one of the astronauts, I don't remember who, but I remember saying something of like, when they were first like in space and they're looking at Earth, and what they realize is just like, the world is so beautiful. Humanity, like tribes of city, whatever, whatever. I mean, it is still a tribe, but basically their level of tribe was way up there, and they're just like, man, just humanity. It's us against the void.
Well, that's the goal, right? That's the goal. I think, again, to touch on why I think tribes are so important, it's they're not always good, of course, because they create a lot of division. But at the core, it's trying to find commonality. And I think the goal is we got to figure out a way to find more commonality with one another. You and I belong to a tribe. Entrepreneurship, that's a tribe in itself. And that's important that people can connect on that tribe because it doesn't matter about race or where you're from or how old you are or any of those things. So if people can connect in different ways, like my goal when I first go into a meeting, I'm looking for commonality. How do I find commonality with this person from me?
Why?
Because I think that's the most important thing in life. People tend to want to connect and be friendly and support you if you find some type of commonality. Because I'll give you a great example, because people will always say to me, Jason, I bet you've had a tough time as an entrepreneur in Korea. That's the first thing usually out of people's mouths. And I like to sometimes say, no. But the truth is, yes, it has been. But the truth is, it is difficult, but I've learned some different ways to handle it. There's hacks. Commonality is a great hack to find a way to get people support and help without maybe they wouldn't even realize that you're like, oh, that watch, yeah, man. And if it's some type of special watch that actually you can connect because you can tell that if they're a fan of that particular brand, that's a way for you to connect with someone. If you're wearing, again, if I wear an LSU hat and I go into a meeting and I see another man wearing an LSU hat, we have commonality. If I can see someone and immediately we connect on something that is so clear to us, that makes that person give me more benefit of the doubt. And that's what we all want in this world, right? We want to be given the benefit of the doubt.
Another way to say kind of benefit of the doubt is, I guess, trust.
Trust, yeah.
Because if someone's in my tribe, so you're in the same thing, business meeting, you see someone with the LSU hat, and you're just like, LSU?
Yeah.
And
you must be at least decent.
and that tribe could have different things like, I don't know, just whatever. And then you're just like, oh, I get it. Like in the Marines, if you find out someone's related to the Marines, you'll say like Semper Fi. It's almost like a secret code.
That's right.
And they're like Semper Fi. You're like, oh shoot, okay. you're part of my tribe. And so
Exactly.
immediately, it's almost like let's like back caveman days. People are always uncertain of their
Yeah.
environment. They're always kind of like on edge, like
Mhm.
who's trying to attack me, whatever. But when can I let my guard down?
Yes. Yes. When can I be myself? When am I allowed to kind of shed the armor a little bit? I'm not saying you got to completely shed your armor just because I'm wearing the LSU hat, but it gives you that sense of, oh, you're in the military too. Okay, so you understand a little bit more about me without me even needing to say anything. And
Right.
that's our goal, right? We can't give everybody our full backstory when we meet them, but we can give them little hints about, oh, so you grew up here.
Yeah.
Oh, you went to school here.
Yeah.
Oh, you were in the military. Oh, okay, I'm getting a sense of who you are.
Yeah.
And we're humans. We don't have the time to get your whole full story when we
Unless
first
you're
meet
doing a
you.
podcast.
Unless you're doing a podcast. Maybe everyone should do a podcast to get that commonality
See,
with each other.
we do this once. You meet a
Mhm.
new person. You want to learn about me? Just watch the podcast.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. But I mean, the truth is, I don't blame humanity for that. I think we should have more empathy with each other. I think the goal is find that commonality because it's somewhere. I've met every single type of person you can meet in this world because I've traveled a lot, thankfully, and I've been exposed to a lot of culture, a lot of different people, and I always find commonality in some kind of way, shape, or form.
So I guess like you can look at it. Okay, let's say from an entrepreneurship, businessman, man or woman's
Mhm.
perspective, finding commonality is almost a method. It's a means to an end, and the end is I want to close the deal. Okay, so it can be seen as that. So that's one way to look at it. It's I'm gonna try to find commonality so that this person trusts me, and then I'm gonna sell them my product.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's one way. I'm not saying that's necessarily bad. I can see the potential cons of that because
Mhm.
then the whole point is built to trust.
Yeah.
But if they know that your only intention
Yep.
then is to build that trust in order to sell something,
Mhm.
then you just kind of lost that trust.
Yep.
Um, Another way to look at it is kind of what we were talking more about, like the base needs of humanity,
Mhm.
of the more, even though the tribe, like you might not belong to my Louisiana tribe,
Mhm.
we're still the common tribe of humanity.
Yeah.
And so we can find some other way to connect. But another way to say is it's not the means to an end, maybe it's an end in itself. It's we are built to connect. And so by me in a business meeting connecting with you, even if you don't buy my stuff, I'm just happy that we had a moment where we had a moment of connection and I fulfilled like maybe one of my deep core reasons of existence as a human is to connect. And I'm like, that in itself I'm thankful for. If it leads to a business deal or whatever, that's all fine and dandy. But I'm just appreciative of this moment that we had.
Exactly. 100%. You said it perfectly. I don't even need to say much more. I mean, I think the goal is not that it's some type of tactic, and you shouldn't come at it with this mentality of, well, if I can trick them into thinking I'm a part of a
Yeah.
tribe, then they'll be more likely to say yes to
Yeah.
something that I'm trying to, push down their throat. For the most part, people don't respond well to that. So it has to feel genuine. It has to feel authentic. It has to feel like, but I think people appreciate it when it feels like you went out of your way to find commonality with them. And again, if they feel like it wasn't for an ulterior motive, they're most likely to be into it. Like the other day, I was at a meeting and this guy, we couldn't have been more different. He's from New York, I'm from Louisiana. So he's more high energy and from a place where it's tons of people and tons of just activity. And I'm from a slow, laid back, country place. And he's an older guy, so there's all these different things that could probably divide us. What did we connect on? Our first names are both Jason. And like, oh, you're part of my tribe. You're a fellow Jason. So it's like, yeah, let's go on that. Let's play with that for a little while. And I'm not saying that that's supposed to be like the core of your whole friendship with a person, but it's a good starting point. It's a good way to find commonality.
When's the last time that you had a conversation with someone and as much as you tried, you could not find commonality?
It happens. I mean, you and I, we both go to a lot of these networking things and you try to find that commonality with people and it can be challenging. It really can be. But I think, you're better off when you do. Like, I mean, people used to, and I used to have issues with this, just to kind of touch on what you said earlier, because I would kind of think, I would hear from people, oh, Jason, sometimes you just sound like a politician. You always find a way to be friendly with someone, and maybe that doesn't seem very authentic.
Yeah.
And it used to bother me, honestly. I was like, man, we basically trying to say I'm fake,
Yeah,
or, I'm not like a genuine person. But I started to realize, like, as long as I feel like I'm genuinely interested in this person in front of me, and I'm trying to make an effort to actually connect with them, I'll go over and above. Like, you like basketball? Great, me too. What kind of stuff do do you play basketball? Do you like to watch basketball? Great, we have a starting point. That's the thing. Oh, so now I have a little friend who that's our focus when we chat, because that's his thing. So great, that's our, our relationship can build from that. And it doesn't have to be this thing where you have to have 10 things in common to be friendly with a person.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, going back to your example of the basketball, it's like, oh, you like basketball? So do I. I think where you can run into an issue is if you actually don't like basketball.
That's the issue.
And to be honest, like even that's, if you hate, let's say you hate basketball, even that could be a point of conflict. Like, oh, you love basketball? Funny enough, I hate basketball.
Yeah.
Like, tell me why you love basketball. And so that can become an interesting conversation.
I've had tons of great friendships with that. I've had so many great friendships that started just like what you described. Like, you like this? I hate this. How do you like that? Tell me about it. I'm interested. You got my full attention now. I want to hear your pitch. Pitch me on why this is worth me worrying about.
Yeah.
And usually I'll get some really insightful information from it.
And there's a thin line between love and hate, because both are just the two sides of the same coin, which is that you're very passionate about it. So I think oftentimes we hear like opposite of love is hate, where I think the actual answer is the opposite of love or hate is apathy. Like,
yes.
I don't care at all. And so let's say in that case, I could not care anything about basketball. And then it's like, oh, you like basketball? I mean, even in that scenario, because actually I get that a lot. Because so when I was in the military, people would be like, oh, hey, sports. Oh, you're in the military. You must care about politics and sports and whatever. And I'm like, I actually don't really follow sports. But I'm curious enough to talk about it with you. Like, oh, is there anything kind of interesting that's happening? And if you're willing to explain it to me, then I'm happy to listen, and I'm happy to learn.
Right.
There are, it could also just, if you fake it though, if you're just like,
oh,
I love basketball too, and you're like, oh, great, who's your favorite team? Oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're just like, wait, what? And so I think it's like when you watch a play, there's this concept of suspension of disbelief.
Yes. You
suspend your disbelief because this is not real, but you allow yourself to get caught up in the emotions because it's fun, it's entertaining. So it's like this suspension of disbelief, and then as soon as they're like, my favorite basketball team? Oh yeah, the LA Dodgers. You're just like, you're like, what? Did I hear wrong?
Right.
Oh no, I heard right. What? And then it's just like, is this malicious? And it's just like, it goes from neutral to like negative territory.
Well, trust. It goes back to the core. Can I trust you? You're a big fan, right? So tell me something about this team or this, thing that you like so much. And if you can't answer a basic question, then that makes me not trust you. And now the whole thing is negated. So the whole thing was you wanted to find commonality with me, but now you've lost all goodwill with me because I know it's not coming from a good, genuine place.
And at that point, it's like, in the beginning, I was seeking out the commonality, maybe because of ulterior motives, or maybe because of just my core humanity. I just want to connect. But as soon as you get a taste of distrust,
it's hard to overcome.
People are like, I no longer have a desire to connect with you.
100%. So that's why I think you're right to warn people. Don't just go out there and just agree to just anything that people will say, because you'll get caught up. It's easy to get caught up with that because people who like the thing that they like, they know a lot about it. So if you say, oh, I love your watch, man, I have one too. And they're like, yeah, I love these brands and blah, blah, blah. And they start going on and on. And you don't even know anything about it. You're going to get caught pretty quickly. So, be thoughtful about things that you genuinely are either A, curious about, or B, know a whole lot about, because either way, you're going to have an interesting conversation with that person.
So on this topic of it seems like you have strong feelings about this topic.
Yeah, very much so.
How has it, and you kind of touched on it before, how has this topic helped you or hurt you in the world of entrepreneurship?
Well, I'll speak on Korea because here's the thing. Again, people will make every excuse about why their thing hasn't grown or why their thing isn't doing as much as they think it should. They'll say, "Oh, well, no, no one wants to support me." But the truth comes down to this. People tend to want to connect when they find commonality. And so typically in business, it's not always the smartest guy. It's not always the most, talented guy. It's not even always the guy who has the best idea. It's a lot of time it's like, man, can I trust this guy? Is he decent? Is he all right? And typically when you go to a meeting, people are trying to find commonality. Oh, you went to Korea University. Great. I did too. Oh, you're from this hometown. My dad's from this hometown. Oh, you go to this church. Oh, great. My family goes to that church. Oh, you belong to this club. Oh, great. So you're finding ways to connect. Unfortunately, I'm from Louisiana. I'm born, raised there, went to school there. So those questions I just said, oh, did you go to the same university? No, I went to LSU. Oh, I went to Seoul National. Oh, you're from what hometown? Lake Charles? Oh, I'm from Suwon, So all those questions that you typically try to connect on people with, I was unfortunate that I couldn't connect on those things. But that wasn't, my fault or their fault. That's just the circumstances. And because of that, you lack a lot of commonality that's important to people. And that's no matter where you go in the world. That's not just here in Korea. If you go to America, where'd you go to school? Where'd your parents grow up? Do you like this type of football team? These are ways that we say, oh, I like this guy. We can connect. We can make things work together. We can do business together. And so that was a challenge here for me in Korea. But like I said, I figured out other ways to connect and find commonality with folks.
See, I think that's like a really interesting point. It's like, I think perspective. One glass half full or half empty.
Mm-hmm.
You're from Louisiana, you're doing business with people in Korea. Glass half empty, I got nothing in common. They're racist against Americans, et cetera, right? Glass half full perspective is all that is not a negative. It's more, I can learn from each other as long as you have a genuine desire of like, Suwon, tell me about your thing. And then as you learn more about them, you start realizing, oh shoot, like your town had a well, so did mine. I'm all the way over in Louisiana. Boom, there's a connection.
Yes.
And I think the fun thing about these connections is it's stronger than the average connection, a fellow Suwon person, because it's so unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think like humans are drawn to things that are unexpected, that are like, kind of shocking or whatever. And until then, their assumption was you live halfway around the world, we don't have much in common, and yet it turns out that we do. And I think that when that happens, you get surprised. But I think the deeper thing, if the person lets it, is if I were wrong about this, what else am I wrong about?
That's a great insight. Yeah. And I think that that's been my journey here, is that exact scenario you described, which is I give them this kind of fish out of water tale that they all fall in love with because it's so unique and interesting to them. So instead of saying I grew up in Suwon, you know what I say? Well, Suwon's my hometown. How is Suwon your hometown? I say it's my Korean hometown. That's where I first moved to Korea, was Suwon. And they'll say, where in Suwon? I'm like, oh, Buksuwon. Where in Buksuwon? Jongjaedong. That's where I'm from. And I'm like, okay, we can connect here.
So you passed the sniff test, basically.
Right. So they can't call me out on not knowing what I'm talking about, because I'll say things that, oh, in the Home Plus right there. Yeah, did you ever go to that galbi spot? Suwon galbi's the best, right? Yeah. So it's that way to connect with people, even though on the surface it might look like there's no way we can have commonality. Yeah. But then there's ways, because I've lived a pretty great life here in Korea, because I've traveled. I've lived in different places. I've met people that, I used to live in this little small town in Korea called Nonsan. Any older man who is from a certain period of time who did military service in Korea knows Nonsan. Oh. Because Nonsan is where they do their military service typically. And so when I bring up the fact that I lived in Nonsan and that, I had some really important memories there, and I'll tell them stuff like, oh, when I was in Nonsan, you know, I was also working for the city hall as the president of foreign affairs. Now they're engaging with me because they're like, I spent time in Nonsan, or I'm even from Nonsan, what, you know, or I'm from Chungcheongnam-do, that
Yeah.
region. And so those are always ways that I can find commonality with people.
I I think that's like especially interesting because it would be interesting, that idea, just like if we're two Americans just hanging out in America, but I feel like when I talk to many foreigners here, what they say is like it's hard to make friends.
Yeah.
It's hard to make friends, which I have a feeling what you would say is it's not hard to make friends, but it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard, but I think it's going back to what you're saying. It's like it's more your attitude,
Yeah.
of like it's all. You can either see that as a glass half full, this sucks, woe is me thing,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's against me thing, and then your perspective of the native people of who live here in Korea is like a very negative thing. Like, oh, are you going to be the next person that judges me? Are you going to be the next person that can't connect with me? Or if you flip it, you're like, the world is my oyster. Like, there is so much to learn here. It's so fun, and I tried to connect with this person. It didn't work, and then you're like, but why? Maybe next time I can try this. So it's like it's going into a different mentality, and I feel like that same mentality will serve you in business, in the world of
Absolutely.
entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, and I've seen it work. I've seen it work time and time again. I've seen it work where I've seen opportunities where it didn't even look like it should be an opportunity, but then it just transforms right before your eyes.
Like, what's an
when-
example?
Okay, Nonsan example. I've had people from Nonsan that I met in Seoul, and they're so shocked to meet another person, number one, who lived in Nonsan that now lives in Seoul. So that's already number one, that they're just like, you lived in Nonsan, now you're like in Seoul? Because we don't meet a lot of people who go from Nonsan to Seoul.
Do they normally stay in?
They usually stay at least in that area. The maximum they'll go to is like Daejeon or like maybe Iksan, because those are neighboring bigger cities, right? But to just pick up everything you own and move all the way to Seoul.
Which, by the way, geographically, is it far?
Now, in the context of America, no. In the context of Korea, yes.
Where is Nongsan?
It's 2 hours down south.
So to me,
That's nothing.
we're still in California.
Right. I'm still in Louisiana.
Still in Louisiana.
Right. But in Korea, that's a big daunting thing. You know, how often do you meet people who say, man, I had to move all the way from Daegu to Seoul? To me, it's like, it's not that big of a trip, but I get it. This is about context.
Yeah.
Again, it's about context. Anytime you deal with those types of things, I have to remind myself to put myself in their shoes, have empathy, understand the context
Yeah.
of the situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had people who I've done business deals with because we could spur that commonality of that shared experience.
You know, I think it's like really interesting. There's this interesting concept. It was coined by a guy named Ben Thompson. He's like he's a tech analyst. He actually came out of my alma mater for my MBA at Northwestern, and he became a tech analyst. And he's like he was actually quoted in a Apple presentation, which was like kind of mind blowing. But he coined this term. I think he said strategy credit. It's when, for example, Apple says, you know, when the privacy issues were happening, Apple would say things like, for us, privacy is number one. Like, you're not the product, we sell products. Like, we're about privacy. And so he would say, Apple didn't do it for the purpose of privacy or strategy to protect your privacy. It just happened to be that they sell devices. They don't make money off of services. Companies that make money off of services, they often have to monetize by, you know, making money off the people, their data. Apple makes money off the devices, so it just happens to be. But they get credit for that. So it's like a strategy credit. Now I'm gonna tie that back to this concept of context. I feel like it's like almost arbitrage. It's like in America, driving 2 hours is not that big of a deal. Especially like in LA, where you know, you're driving an hour, 2 hours just to get to, like, you know, neighboring cities. In Korea, though, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
In Korea, 2 hours is a big deal.
Yeah.
So an example is, like, we have friends down in Cheonan, which is about hour and a half drive from here, and they were playing soccer, and we're like, oh, our kids want to play soccer. let's go.
Mm-hmm.
So for a few Sundays, we would go down after church, and then we'd go down and then play soccer. And one day they were having dinner and stuff, and they were like very thankful that we came. It wasn't a huge soccer; it was like just their family, and we're just like, oh, we enjoy playing. But their attitude was, they were so open and appreciative. They're like, you came all the way from Seoul to come with us, just to play with us. And in our heads, we're like for them, it's this big of a deal. For us, it's not that much of a cost.
A convenience.
Yeah, it's a little bit inconvenience, but the joy outweighs it, because we really enjoy playing soccer with them, because they actually, the way they play soccer is we play like adults against kids, and then only one of the adults is good. I'm mediocre, and the two wives are not that good, but because of that, it's just fun dynamics, and then we just cheer each other on.
That's awesome.
And for example, like me and the good guy, we never score. We always pass it to the people who aren't good. And so it's just, they're bumbling, and it's just so much fun.
It's fun.
And so we have a lot of fun, and we like to teach our kids like that this is a good way of playing, not so competitive and stuff. But we're getting like the strategy credit, because for us it's not that big of a cost, and yet for them they're so thankful. And so what it does to the interaction is they're just so like they're so welcoming. They're like,
absolutely,
because we have to they sleep in the car on the way back. And so they're like, oh, just come to our place, like, take a shower, blah, blah, blah. And it enriches, and it's like this virtuous cycle of like, they're so appreciative, and they're really nice to us. We receive that, and we're so thankful, and it's just this virtuous cycle.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
I love it. I love it. I think that's how it all should be. Just what you described. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think we should go out of our way on, too consistently, because honestly speaking, we're only human. Eventually we're gonna feel feelings of resentment, and we're gonna feel like it's not a fair trade, and then it actually causes issues in the relationship, because you start saying stuff like, well, why are we always going to China? Why don't they come to so when you know for a fact that the reality is it's a small inconvenience for the actual benefit you get, it's perfect, because both parties get such a wonderful interaction from it, because they're like, man, this is a real friend. Sam is a true friend. He drives all the way from Seoul down here to hang out with us. And that's enough for them to say, man, whatever we got, whatever we can do to make things more convenient for you, we can do it, because you're sacrificing. And for you, you're like, dude, I'm gaining just as much as I'm sacrificing. I can keep doing this for the next however long that we're here in Korea,
I think the funny thing is, like, I remember I used to, I was back in here in 2005 for studying abroad at Yonsei, and I remember the first time kind of experiencing Korea as an adult. I had only gone when I was a child in elementary school and stuff, and then coming as an adult, and I started noticing things kind of related to this. So for example, like the opposite of a strategy credit. So I would like try to speak Korean, and they'd be like, oh, you're not from around here, are you? Like, you're a 외국인, which translates to you're a foreigner.
Right.
And I'm like, or 외국인 literally means 외국 is, I guess it's like outside or something, and in is a person. So I'm like, dang, dude, I thought at least in America that I was a foreigner, even though I'm an American, but at least I thought I'd be accepted by my people. But when they look at me, they're like, you're not one of us. You ain't one of us. And I'm like, and they're like, dude, why does your Korean suck so bad? And I'm like, dude, like, I came all the way here to like get better. Like, that's not kind of you to say that.
Yeah.
And then there's like this white guy next to me, and he's like, 안녕하세요. And they're like, oh, very good, very good. And then they give him free food, because that's kind of Korea's love language, like give you free food. And I'm like, 안녕하세요. They're like, you need to work on your Korean, man. And I saw it even more pervasively when I was doing private tutoring. And I'm like, there could be a German white dude who's speaking English, and his rate will be like 100 an hour. And I'm like, I'm a native speaker. Like, he's a second language, I'm a native speaker, and they'd probably pay me half because of I don't look like it. And I get it, but I remember being like, this is reverse racism. Like, what the heck is going on here, guys?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I think that there's, again, maybe it's the half glass full thing, because I don't know your circumstance, so I won't even pretend to sit here and say, well, this is what you actually should have did, Sam. I don't know, and I won't pretend like I know, but I think there are some hacks there. I haven't had enough time to sit with it and think, I wonder what the hack is to make commonality the goal in that instance. But I mean, you're already kind of figuring a lot of cool ways that I've honestly, here's the story from me. I meet a lot of people in Korea, and there's usually this weird cycle where people are excited that they're here, then reality kind of sets in, and it's like, this is pretty good, but it's not this utopia I thought it was. And then it's like, well, I wish it was different in these ways, but they don't change it, and it's kind of getting frustrating. Then it gets into this weird bitterness kind of stage where it's kind of like, I hate everything about this place, and people are so rude, and the people spit on the street, and the ajumas push you. Then it gets into this, again, cycle. So I always tell people, man, when you start seeing that you're getting into this weird, bitter stage, it's time for you to go. Because in all honesty, you've lost all that goodwill, you know, and you're gonna project that on other people, and you're not gonna have this mentality of trying to find common, and it's gonna be a cycle for you. It was bad, it's gonna get worse, and it's gonna be bad again, it's gonna get worse, because you're already coming at it from a mentality of everything sucks, all the people suck, everything's against me, no one wants me to be here.
Have you met people like that, or were you one of those people?
Oh, I've met tons. I mean, when I first moved to Korea, you know, I was called the newbie.
By the way, when did you move to Korea?
I moved to Korea in 2007. So
2007?
2007. That was the first year I visited
you're like
Korea.
an OG, man. Well, dang, that's like fifth, seventh? I can't do the math.
17 years
17
ago.
years?
Yeah.
Dang.
So it's funny because I didn't know I was going to be here that long. I didn't have any intention to be here that long. I was just
what's
coming
the story?
to visit.
What's the story?
Okay. So I came to visit my friend. He stationed here in the military. He was
Air Force?
Air Force. And, you know, he and I were talking about our lives. And, you know, at the time I was doing internal auditing.
Of all friends, why would you visit him in Korea?
Well, he was a good friend of mine. We were just venting about different things going on. And I just got a job. I graduated from LSU in finance, and I was doing internal auditing. And I didn't really like it, to be honest with you.
In America?
In America.
Okay, so for like a big company?
Yeah, right. And so it just didn't fit my personality.
What is internal auditing?
It's basically where you go out and you say to a company, let me figure out all the things you're doing wrong, and then optimizing it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's
already like glass half empty.
Right. So I kind of looked at it as like you're telling on people. Like, hey, this dude, he's taking like a 30-minute lunch break. He should really just be taking 25.
Oh, gosh.
It's like 5 minutes. What, you know what I mean? So
they're not exactly pulling out the red carpet for you guys.
No, you don't make a ton of friends really. So
like, oh crap, the audit guy's coming.
Yeah, right. So I didn't really dig it, you know. So, but it was like one of those things where I was supposed to be really grateful because this is one of those opportunities where people say, oh, if you get into this, it'll, you know, skyrocket the rest of your career in finance. So, so you know, I was talking to my friend. He's like, dude, just stop. If you don't like it, you're still young. You're early 20s. You're not married. You have no kids. Life is still very open to you. Look at me. I'm in Asia right now.
How old was he at that time?
He was in, I met him in college. He just didn't graduate. He ended up going to the military instead.
Oh, it's an enlisted,
so he decided to, so he decided to forego college and join the Air Force. And then we were just talking about our lives. And he was like, dude, just come here. I'm like, where's here? And he's like, Korea. And I'm like, I'd heard the term Korea, I'd heard the name. I wasn't completely ignorant to the name Korea. But
what were the associations you had with Korea at the time?
The Korean War. My uncles had been in the Korean War.
Oh,
so I'd had a ton of family members who told me about their experience of being in the Korean War.
Do you know what branch of the military?
Marines. And the Army as well. So, so I'd heard only that part of the story. And so when he told me, why don't you come here? It just like, no, like, what do you mean come here? Like
go to Tanzania? It's like, what?
Right.
That has nothing to do with me.
That has nothing to do with me.
Going back to our theme, there's no connection that I have.
Right. And so the thing was, he connected it back to me. He said, well, Jason, you know, when we were in school together, I heard you say at least 3 times around me that you were one day gonna live in Asia.
Oh.
And you know what's so funny about the human brain? I forgot I'd even said that. Because I was like so focused on being an adult. It's time to grow up. It's time to throw away all those little childish kind of dreams of, oh, I'm going to travel.
I'm going to be an astronaut.
Right. It's like, no, I'm not doing any of that. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get a house. Going to get a, you know, a wife, have kids.
1.5 kids. You know,
right. And so my brain is already like laser focused on that. And when he said that, I was like, I said that? He's like, dude, yeah, you said that. And I thought, I was like, dude, he's right.
Did
I've been
that
saying that since I
awaken
was
something in you?
yes, it awakened something in me, and I'm so grateful to him because it made me remember. I've been saying that since I was 6 years old.
No kidding.
I've been saying that since I was 6 years old.
6
I
years
don't
old
know if
in
I saw a
Asia?
movie. I said one day I'm gonna live in Asia.
What?
I said that 100%. I said, man, I'm gonna probably move to Asia and live there. And again, he was like, Korea is Asia, bro.
FYI.
Right.
It ain't Europe.
Right. And he's like, you already have a friend here that you know and you can at
That
least
is such
kind of
like a
lean on.
loose connection though, like one friend in the country.
But that was enough.
But I think the point is, it's just like the whole like the connection doesn't have to be super strong. We don't have to have like a million overlapping threads, because even with that weak connection, there was already inside of you this desire that was actually pushing
You
you.
just pulled it out. Yeah, that's 100% right. And so I still believe in that to this day, that that's how you should approach life, is just, find that little thing that's like, oh, right. And that's, you don't need everything to line up perfectly. Life is not like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. 1 second. I just want to make sure it's still recording. I'm like always paranoid that it's like not recording. I can edit this part out.
Okay.
But you want to talk for a little bit more, and then if you want, we can also grab lunch.
Oh, well,
It's up to you.
I have a lunch meeting.
Oh,
that's
okay,
the 2 o'clock thing. I was
Okay,
talking about.
cool. Then
Okay.
we'll just chill.
Okay.
I'm good. All right, back to it. Sorry. So you were talking about Asia.
So I took him, first I was scared. I was like, dude, I'm from Louisiana. We don't travel. Like, I was reading something not that long ago, and it said 2/3 of people from Louisiana never move further than 3 miles from where they were born.
Oh, so in effect, it's the American version of 농사.
Yes, that's exactly right. You hit it perfectly, man. So people don't move. People don't leave. Why would you leave? They're like, we got great food here. We got great culture. Look at all So I didn't even think that it was really a possible thing to really leave
But
where I was
why
from.
did you have that though? Were you unique within your community, within your tribe?
I think so. I think that I was willing to kind of be open to other stuff because
Like, what did your family say or friends say when they heard that?
they didn't
You were
think
young.
it was a smart idea. They were like, number one, and this is super not cool, but that's what the way the mentality was. You got to remember, it's 2007.
Yep.
So there was no K-pop, K-dramas, K-culture, any of that. It was, back then they called Korea the Hermit Kingdom because not a lot of information was coming in, not a lot of information was going out. It was just very like insulated. People liked what they liked here, and they didn't care if the other parts of the world liked it or not. This is our thing. And so even when I was Googling it while I'm on the phone with this guy, I'm like, dude, not a lot is coming up. What's going on over? What's the food? What is blah, blah, blah. And so he was giving me kind of filling in the gaps where Google couldn't. But when I told my friends and family I was moving to Korea, which Korea and why? The good Korea, the bad Korea? And why would you go there? There's obviously some issue happening where they have some kind of fight that they're dealing with. And I was like, well, I don't know. My friend says it's pretty safe. He's in the military. He said that everything's okay. And so they had this mentality, which was the mentality of a lot of Americans at that time, which was, Jason, people move from these other countries into America. Why would you be leaving America to go to these other places? That doesn't make any sense logically to them. And I said, man, the world is big. We have to go and check out everything. So it was some convincing that we had to do to get them to kind of understand what I wanted to do. And so I just said, look, I'm not planning to live there for the rest of my life. I'm just visiting. But that ended up being wrong. So
that's really interesting. I think it's interesting their attitude or what they said. They said they didn't have a connection. You could have said, oh, you have a thing, that's cool, like that's not something I would do, but that's cool. That's not what they said.
No.
They were trying to keep you. So because of their lack of connection to that place and their connection with you, they're like, they were
trying to protect me, essentially.
In their eyes, I think part of it may be protection. I think part of it is like, you're an idiot. Because I'm looking at the world through my prism, through my prism of understanding. And that thing is like an idiotic move. You're stupid. You're stupid.
You're illogical.
You're not normally stupid, but your action is telling me you're stupid. So I'm going to help you return to the previous non-stupid area that you were in my mind. I'm going to move you back.
Didn't you go to college? Didn't you graduate?
Oh,
Aren't you supposed to be the smart one in the family?
Dang.
Yeah.
How'd that make you feel when you heard that?
To be honest, I don't let stuff like that bother me too much. That's one thing that's kind of been always my superpower, is that I take in advice and feedback, but I don't necessarily move off of it, if that makes sense.
So you have an internal filter.
Yes, like if I hear something that makes sense to me, I can totally say, man, it doesn't need to come from my brain for me to, incorporate it into my life, because I know that it's coming from something that I can logically understand. But if you say something like, we shouldn't travel because A is dangerous, well, I can debunk that. Or because it doesn't make sense because this country's better than this country, well, I can debunk that too. And so there's ways that I can kind of filter it, like you said, to where I can hear what you had to say, but I don't necessarily need to move on it.
I mean, I think that's, so two comments. One is around the fear thing. So when I was in Afghanistan, I was there in 2010 to 11.
Wow.
And then in my unit, I mean, I was in the office, it was pretty safe, but there was this guy who was vigorously preparing. And so I'm an officer, he's enlisted, so I'm like, hey, Sergeant, what are you preparing for? He's like, hey, sir, I'm going to walk across Asia to raise money for cleft lip palate. Like when they're, part of the things is gone, he's like, for surgery, and he's like, the surgery is not that expensive. He's like, I'm gonna do this. And I'm like, wow, that's like really charitable, but how does walking around Asia do anything? So, and I didn't understand like the mechanics of it. And he's like, well, I'm gonna raise funds and I'm gonna tell people, hey, I'm gonna walk around, will you donate to this cause? And then he's gonna do it. And so he was planning to the ounce. I was like, hey, you should check out this camera. This camera's pretty cool. He's like, sir, that's too heavy. He's like, everything I have, I'm gonna be walking. It has to be on my body, and every ounce I am looking at, like sleeping and everything. And so I was following his thing along. Oh, it's called SmileTrek.com.
Nice.
I don't know if it's still around because it was a long time ago, but he basically walked around Asia. But one of the things that I remember about his journeys is he would kind of talk about, he would go to a village, and the village, he would tell them like, hey, where are you going next? He's like, oh, I'm going that way. And he's like, I'm going to that village. And they're like, oh no, don't go to that village. That is a dangerous village. Do not go there. And same as you, he kind of just had a filter in his head. He's like, okay, but I'm gonna go. And he went, and he's dead. No, I'm kidding. Like that. I think that would. Gosh, that's terrible.
Oh my God.
He's alive. At least I know. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he didn't die there.
Oh my God, that was amazing. That was amazing. You had me locked in, man. Oh my God, I've been laughed at.
You're like, where's Sam going with the story?
Right. I was like, wait, I'm with you.
Is he trying to debunk me?
Yeah, where are we going with this?
It's still fear in me?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Glad we have that. See, now that's a souvenir for you.
Thank you, sir.
No, so he went. What happened is he went, and he's like, "Where's the danger? Where's the danger that everyone talked about? It's safe." And not only that, I met all these nice, really kind people, and so his point was this general topic of fear, of the fear of the unknown.
You're right.
And you're basically kind of pushing all that fear that you have onto others. And when they don't do what you tell them to do, you're kind of frustrated because they were your tribe and now they're leaving your tribe.
Yes. And that's the downside of tribalism. Like, we can talk all the good parts about tribalism, but there's obviously the bad sides of tribalism, and fear is the bad side of tribalism. That's the part that keeps other people out because they don't want to adhere to the same norms that we want to believe in. And so, that part of the story, I wish we could, again, not be so tied to specific, these tribes that are, when I think about identity, I think about the fact that I like so many things. I like travel. I like basketball. I like great food. Most people like those things I just said. So why can't we find ways to connect on that instead of the fear side of, well, I heard those people are going to take our guns away. Or I heard those people are going to be, trying to illegally come into our country. So these are things that are fear-based tribalism that obviously is going to cause us all a lot of pain.
Yeah. I think that, that's where kind of my mind went to. There's a lot of tribalism within America. And I feel like that type of tribalism is different than what you and I are talking
Mhm.
about. I think what you and I are talking about is, okay, I'm just kind of working through this idea.
Mhm.
So there is this base desire of humanity to want to connect.
Yes.
Now the question is, how do you connect?
Yes.
Now, the connection can be a yes and,
Mhm.
or it's a yes, oh, that's what you like? Okay, not really anything. And then you can just search for something else. But when it gets to the point where you're like, oh, you believe that? You must be a complete idiot
Yeah.
because you think that.
Dogma.
And it's like, yeah, it's this dogma of like, when I push you away, a good example of this is Trump.
Mhm.
Oh, you like Trump?
You're a terrible person.
You're a terrible person. You're a terrible person, and all these things. And instead of saying, "Oh, you like basketball? Oh, you like Trump? Like, interesting. I don't share the same views, but I'd like to understand. Like, tell me why.
Yeah.
Tell me why." And they might actually end up having very, just like it could just be like very ignorant ideas, like, oh, blah 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 blah. Okay, that's fine. And then you can choose to engage or not. Like,
Mhm.
but then even if you kind of run up to a dead end, you can just be like, okay, cool, and then you can find another thing to connect to.
Yeah.
But I think what often happens is to say like, I think that maybe this is it, that when you are not part of my tribe, and in fact you're in the tribe that I hate, uh, I basically I want to excommunicate you.
Yeah.
And what I am saying is that part of yourself, it might not even be the core part of your identity,
Mhm.
but I'm going to make it the core part of your identity.
Yes.
I'm going to attribute that to you, and someone with a core identity of that, I don't even want to deal with. When in fact, that person never, it might be their core identity, but it probably isn't. It probably, like Trump, let's say I agree with Trump, I believe in Trump, whatever, that's not even part of my core identity, but this person thinks it is, and they no longer want to work. And so I feel like that type of thing, when you scale it to a society, leads to kind of what we're seeing in America.
Mhm.
But it's the opportunity cost. It's if they had realized that Trump thing was very small, but there's all these other wonderful things that we would have totally overlapped on. The opportunity cost is that friendship
Yeah.
that you would have had, and that could have led to business, whatever, that could have led to friendship, and it just, oh, it's like watching those Korean dramas where the guy likes the girl likes the guy, but he thinks that he's not good enough for her, and she thinks he's not good enough for him,
Yep.
and it's like this classic, like, no, you two love each other.
Yeah.
Don't let that, no.
Yeah.
It's like that's happening across a society.
Yep. Yep. It's unfortunate. And so again, as much as I'm a big proponent that, and it's not that I'm a proponent, I'm just a realist. We're gonna have tribes to the day we die, because it's until we at least die. Maybe it'll evolve whenever our kids, our
Yeah.
kids, our kids' kids. But it's so hardwired in our DNA to where we're gonna find ways to connect with another human being. Now, sometimes the downside of connecting with a human being is we disconnect with another human being
Yeah.
because we think, well, there's no way I can connect with this person because they're not a part of this tribe that I belong to, which is a big part of my identity. But what I always try to challenge people to say is, man, you're such a
Yeah.
we're a spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have
yeah.
so many
Like,
interesting
why are
things
you trying to
that,
simplify yourself to
Right.
that one identity?
right.
You're such a beautifully complex person.
When people tell me, they say, Jason, never forget, you're a black man first. I say, man, no offense, I love, my
Yeah,
race,
yeah.
and I'm not against,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
part of me.
Yeah.
But it's a part of me.
Yeah.
It's a very crucial part of me, because that's a part that
Yeah.
obviously I couldn't choose, and that it definitely affects my way of life. But it's a part. It's not like I have to wake up every day, Jason, whatever you do outside,
Look in the mirror.
look in the
black
mirror.
man.
You're a black man. Don't you forget. How am I gonna forget it? How am I gonna forget it?
Everyone else will remind me.
Right, right. So at the end of the day, just live your life and connect with people on. I've connected with people because I'm Southern. Oh, you're from the South? Me too. You're from this part of the world? Me too. Oh, you've also experienced this? Me too. Why can't we do more of that instead of saying, well, there's no way this guy's going to be able to understand me because, look at him and look at me. I'm sure we already have so many different things that we look at the world at, and we don't know until we actually try to have a conversation.
I think that's interesting. Like what we said is like humanity has this base need to want to connect.
Mhm.
So if you extrapolate that, you would assume that people would give each other the benefit of the doubt in order, like even if I found out, like let's say you love Trump, which you don't. I don't know. I didn't talk about that. But let's just say we do. That's just a very divisive topic. You would think that if humanity has a basic need to want to connect, then that person will say, oh, okay, you like this person I don't like? Okay, what else would we connect? But that actually doesn't happen. Like, what naturally happens is the other thing of like push you away kind of thing, and which is weird because it's contradictory to what we just said about humanity. And I was just right now thinking like, why is that? And the thing that, I don't know if this is the right answer, but the thing that comes to me is this. I remember it was April 2011. I just got back from Afghanistan, and then I had applied to business school when I was in Afghanistan, and then I went, and they had this welcome day. They call it Day at Kellogg, so DAC. So we went there, and then they do like mini lectures just to kind of try to convince people like, oh, hey, you got accepted, like please come to Kellogg. But one of them was very interesting. A professor kind of did this mini lecture where he's like, you have a chance of winning $1, or you have a chance of losing $1. It's equal. And then most people, by nature, you would think it's equal, might as well go for the gain, but they go to the loss. They're trying to save the $1. And his principle was, for humans, losses are stronger than gains. It's another kind of principle of humanity.
Yes.
Losses are, so now I'm kind of applying it here.
Yeah, I get
What are you thinking? What are you thinking?
I know exactly, and not to step on what you're about to
go
say.
go for it.
People rather not lose their time or their investment of their, friendship for the upside of they might gain a wonderful friendship that they actually could get so much back from, because they're thinking, well, I'm just gonna waste my time. I've heard that so many times. It's just so sad, and that's the part I wish I could. I don't have kids yet, so I'm gonna get some advice from you hopefully throughout our relationship. But when I do have kids, I want to teach them there's no such thing as wasted time. You can learn and take the lessons from that, and you can apply it to something else. So you don't have to think, oh, well, I invested this time to get to know this guy. Then I found out he was a Trump supporter. I wasted that time. There's no way we can be friends. There's no way we can connect. There's no way we can have a really long-standing relationship. He's a this guy and I'm a that guy. I shouldn't have not wasted my time. And then when I heard he was a Trump guy, I stopped wasting my time. I stopped wasting my time.
Yeah. And then the question is, what is the definition of waste? What does waste mean?
Well, that's the point that I got from the whole lose $1, gain $1. You're like, well, what if you actually sit there and talk to this guy and you realize y'all are almost 9 out of 10 connected on every single other thing except for that one thing. Yeah. So you could have gained this really amazing, elaborate friendship with this person, but you didn't want to waste time. You didn't want to waste that $1 because you thought, as soon as I heard that, there was no way. So I want to do loss aversion and avoid this now before I waste any more time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like you're defeating the purpose.
Yeah. And you see these other avenues, and there are times where a broken heart, relationship, you're in a relationship, you've been hurt before, it's going well, and then they push them away. Classic example is Good Will Hunting. You ever watch the movie? Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that movie. Good Will Hunting. Will, he's orphaned, he been abused when he was young, going through the foster care system. He starts liking this girl, and then right when it's going well, he pushes her back. Yep. Why? Because he's like, I want to leave her before she leaves me, because everybody in my life has left me, and I want to maximize the probability that I don't experience that pain again. So I'm gonna push them away first, even though it could have been a good thing. Yeah. And I think like that, this concept is perfectly applicable to entrepreneurship as well. You have a business idea and you're like, dude, this could go well, but you're like, oh, but you start getting freaked out. You're like, oh, but maybe this is a stupid idea. Maybe people are gonna laugh at me. This is just dumb. And then you don't even get started. Yeah. And when in fact, what you were saying is just like that one thing that, let's say that thing that you did not have in common with this person, if you kept talking to them, you would have found wonderful things. Yeah. Maybe not, maybe so, but if you if you add up all these interactions, it's net much positive. Yeah. That's my belief. Same thing with business. It's like, if you had just gone with the idea, say it's stupid, just prove it to me. Go out there and talk to some customers. Talk to some customers. And then this one died? Okay, then you could say, that was a waste of time. And it's like, hold up, what is waste? In order to know what a waste is, I need to know what success is. What is your version of success?
Well, I'll give you a great kind of real world example of that. So obviously I've done entrepreneurship for quite a while now.
How many
I've
years?
done close to 15 years.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've gone from the level of very unsophisticated, very informal, where it was, you know, my journey into it began with doing event planning and party promotions and things like that.
Here in
Very
Korea.
informal, here in Korea. And so it was just a way to kind of understand on a very simple, you know, concept of what entrepreneurship was. But as I got, you know, more into it, it formalized, and I was able to actually put together, you know, with friends, we said, okay, let's put our money together and invest in putting together our own nightclub, our own place. So we did that, and that went pretty well. But I realized quite soon that I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. I wanted to do other things. I wanted to get into tech. So within about 2.5 years, I started to see another problem I wanted to solve, which was with food delivery. And that's my food delivery app, which is basically trying to deliver food from restaurants that are, you know, typically the restaurants that didn't deliver themselves. So when you think about food delivery, especially maybe we're around the same, you know, age, Domino's, Chinese restaurants, Pizza Hut, they would have their own drivers.
Yeah.
So originally, delivery apps would just aggregate. They would say, hey, around you right now, there's a Domino's that can deliver, there's a Chinese restaurant that'll deliver, and there's, you know, these other places. But they didn't have like one for delivering a Mexican restaurant that didn't have drivers.
Are you talking
Thai
about in
restaurant.
general, in America, in Korea? Or?
Well, I was just talking specifically about Korea,
Okay.
because at that time, that was an issue I was trying to solve in Korea.
When was this?
This is back in like 2013.
2013. So in 2000, because what's interesting is like I remember even when I was at school, the delivery system, like that's one thing that was amazing about Korea. Maybe it's because it's so densely packed and the expectations are so high. But I remember like getting jjajangmyeon,
Yeah.
and just like the guy bringing the, you know, tin can and delivering, and I thought it was like magic. It's like,
Yeah.
I went from a thought to a phone call to the food is here, and it wasn't like pizza delivery where it was like took a while.
Right.
I don't know, it was just fast.
It's super fast.
Okay, so that's in 2005. In 2013, what were the issues there?
So the only issue was that, again, at this stage of the life cycle, people were wanting to use apps. They didn't want to do the phone call anymore.
Oh.
So the apps started to get this thing where they say, okay, well, we can just easily advertise to the jjajangmyeon place and the pizza place and the Chinese restaurant place. They would just say, look, hey, Sam, you open our app and it'll tell you the 100 places near you that you can order that jjajangmyeon if you want, and we'll just make sure that we are the in-between between the restaurant and you. And the restaurant did the delivery and the cooking.
And who were the main players at that time?
At the time, this was like back in the day, so Yogi-O was a big player.
Yogi-O, okay.
Paymin was getting pretty big.
Pedalaminjuk. Yeah, that's short for Paymin.
Yeah, they had these other companies that ended up merging, like Tong and Yo and all these other guys. But long story short, that was the game. Aggregation was the game in town. It was the only game in town. When we came in, we were like, well, what about these little Mexican restaurants, Thai restaurants, Vietnamese restaurants that are, you know, other options?
Why didn't they, you know, why didn't they, you know, use
They
these
didn't
services?
deliver.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying this is only available for people who delivered.
That's right. It was only for vendors that actually delivered their food and made their food.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea of like DoorDash and stuff like
It just wasn't a thing yet.
It wasn't a thing.
Yeah. So
Okay.
people kind of only, and so again, I was using the app and I liked it, and I liked jjajangmyeon, and I liked those things. I liked
Yeah.
but it was only like 5 things. And I was like, dude, but there's so much other good food in Korea.
Yeah.
I want to try other stuff.
Yeah.
Like I was just basically trying to solve my own problem. I wanted a burrito delivered to my house. I knew they had one right near my house, but they didn't deliver. I was like, dude, this sucks.
Did you try to
what's
like
the
tell
deal?
them like, hey, can
Yeah,
you like
of
start
course,
delivering?
Of course.
And what they say?
It's too risky, insurance, drivers get hurt, and then we'll have to pay. Everyone had an excuse why it couldn't be done. And so I just kind of kept pushing the idea to the side, but I was getting tired of the fact I couldn't get a burrito delivered to my house. And I was like, dude, if no one's gonna do it, maybe I gotta figure this out.
Jason needs his burrito.
That's it.
Come on.
That's it.
Get
And
him
that's
his
kind of where it
burrito.
came from. And so, again, you could argue that a lot of the lessons that I had to learn were a lot of waste of time lessons, but it actually helped build up what we have now,
Like,
which is
what were some of the things that other people might say it was a waste of time, but it actually helped you build this business?
now, again, we're both college educated, so you'd assume, okay, we know some stuff, but I don't like to leave anything to chance. So I did so many things in order to actually talk myself out of this idea. Because I was like, I'm not a tech guy. I don't know anything about logistics. I'm not even really a big foodie. All I want is this burrito delivered to my house. Somebody else will do it. I'll
It's gotta
let
be
them
someone.
do it.
It's gotta
Right?
be someone else.
Right. But okay, so if no one's gonna do it, let me figure this out. So I spent so much time trying to put out surveys, asking tons of people, 200, 300 people.
But wait a
would
minute,
you
wait a
want-
minute, wait a minute. Something doesn't make sense here.
Okay.
Just the desire of wanting a burrito,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that couldn't have been the only thing to drive you to do all these surveys and stuff.
Absolutely
What
not.
was the other part?
Then it becomes, well, maybe this is a big opportunity. Maybe this is a big opportunity here. Maybe I'm not the only one that wants burritos delivered to their house.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm not the exception to the rule. Maybe there's 200, 300, 400 people out there just like me. And if I could get enough people to convince me
Yeah.
that that's also an overwhelming thing, that
Yeah.
yes, convenience is great, and yes, variety is great. So once I got that in my head, you might say that's a waste of time. Jason, any dummy would know that that's already a given, but I didn't want to assume anything. And so you could say I wasted months and months and months of my time trying to make sure that that was a certainty before just jumping right in.
Yeah, and that's beautiful because, like, that's customer. That's you're validating the business
Mm-hmm.
in a very cheap manner.
Yep.
Because the opposite of that is, So this is something that I learned in Korea. So my friend teaches entrepreneurship at an MBA program here in Korea, and so he did a survey, and he's like, and these people are not classic MBA students. The average age is, I think, like 40 or 50 years old, and a lot of them actually work at big taegyeops, which are like the big corporation like Samsung and stuff. And I'm like, why are they here? Why are they taking entrepreneurship? And a lot of them said because they might need to start a business one day. And I'm like, why would they need to start a business? If they're working at a big company, wouldn't they just get their retirement and live happily ever after? And apparently what I had learned, which I didn't know, is that this tejikum, this payment that they receive at the end of their service to the company, I thought it was enough to sustain them for the rest of their lives. And you're shaking your head and you already know what I'm going to say. It is definitely not.
Not at all.
It is not enough.
No.
It is not enough. I heard in order of like something like maybe a few $100,000.
Right.
And I'm like, they can't live. They're like
The rest
leaving
of
at
your life?
50, 60 years old. They can't do that. So what they do, or what they think that they will get that money and they will start a chicken and beer place. And I'm like, oh, is that why there's so many chicken and beer places?
Right.
And I met someone else who was also doing the same thing. Like he started a screen golf.
Mm-hmm.
Like golf screen, doing against the screen. It's quite big in Korea. In America, it's really janky. But
Top golf.
Yeah, top golf, but you actually hit the ball.
Yeah.
Screen golf, you hit against the screen,
Right.
but it's more of an experience. It's like you
Yeah.
got beer and
Yep.
anyway. But he did that because he got his tejikum, I think,
Mhm.
rolled it into this, and he's like, I got to do well. This business has to do well
Yeah.
so that I can live. And so it's just kind of wild to me that that's what they believe, and they're like chicken and beer, but then they set up the business. For a second, I forgot where I was going, and then I got it back, so I'm good. Am I getting older? In my head, I was like panicking a little, like, where am I going with this? Where am I going with this? Oh crap! Where was I? So, so they start this chicken and beer place because they have a theory, and now they have the capital. They buy the place, they rent it or whatever. They buy all the inventory. They're like, put it on Naver, which is the Korea's version of Google, and traffic spikes in the beginning because Koreans love trying new things. It's just trends, figure it out. And then oftentimes it dies because unless there's something unique about you, because there's a million other people who has the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, then they're now screwed. They're screwed. And they have to shut down shop, and they just wasted that tejikum that was supposed to last them for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
And now they have to depend on the children, and the burden goes to them. And so this whole thing, that's the kind of old school way of doing business, create a business plan, and it's gonna go great. Versus what you just did, which is find a lightweight way, because waste is just people, you're talking with people, It's a lightweight way of validating whether you are the only one, whether this idea has legs or not. Like, that's beautiful.
Well, I mean, but it doesn't always work out so fairy tale like that. You know, I mean, I'll fast forward to, so I've done that, obviously, those two businesses I've named. I've done at least three other businesses here in Korea. And fortunately, they've all gotten to a place where they're stable. They don't need me as much. I'm not as integral to seeing that they continue to be what they are. You know, 10 years in at Shuttle Delivery, our food delivery app, that business is now not just a little baby that was a concept in my head or in our heads, because I have a group of founders that we all did it together. Now it's this full-fledged, you know, thing that can, you know, has managers and people who can help make sure
So
that the
how
systems
big is
get
it?
in place.
I actually don't know much about shuttle delivery.
Yeah, we have about 40 employees. The business has, you know, it's profitable. It allows itself to just continuously, you know, sustain without needing any type of investment or anything like that. So it's in a very, very healthy place, and I'm grateful. But to just fast forward on what you said about waste and learning, I still am a huge fan of learning. I love to learn, and with learning comes pain. And so I started a new project not that long
Because
after.
you are a glutton for pain?
I'm
Is that
maybe
why?
I'm a glutton for pain. I like to say, you know, people say stuff like serial entrepreneurship. I think those are just people who really like pain. Maybe we're just weird like that. I have no idea. You know, talk to my wife, she's like, why? But you know, the point of the story is, I just really truly believe that there's so much to learn, and I'm curious about so much stuff. And so I thought I had this theory. I had shuttle delivery, and I kept seeing that coffee was one of the top things being ordered on our platform. And I love data. I love looking at, you know, things and understanding where, you know, what it means and why. And so I was like, that's interesting. But I kept seeing that people were ordering coffee with their food, so they're paying two delivery fees. And I hate to see stuff under optimized. I'm an operator, so I love to see kind of systems and see things work the right way. And so I was looking at it, and I was like, man, well, if they just ordered the coffee from the actual same place that they were actually getting the food from,
Yeah.
then the restaurant benefits because they're getting that extra income. The customer benefits because now they get to order with just one delivery fee. And actually, it's optimized for us as the delivery people because now just one driver has to go. It's like, man, why isn't this a
No-brainer.
thing? You know, it's a no-brainer. And so I'm thinking to myself, what if I just build this kind of business in a box, this, you know, virtual coffee delivery thing that I give to all of my partner restaurants that we work with? I said, I don't see why they wouldn't want that, because that's one less thing they have to think about. You know, you don't have to put a menu together. I have the menu together. I have the coffee. I have the desserts. Just take what I've gotten here and you use it. And just pay me whatever, and we're good. So I'm like, this sounds reasonable. I check with my vendors. Would you like something like that? 2/3 of them, yeah. Why not? Extra money for us. If it's simple enough, we can teach our staff to do it, and it should be all good.
And by the way, just for some context, at this point, you have already launched. You have a few businesses under your belt.
Yeah. This is the most recent thing that I've been working on.
So for you, the cost of starting this new business is not as high as someone who has never done a business before.
That's right.
So you're kind of riding on this wave, and some of them are successful, and so you're like, okay.
And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I think I got something pretty cool here. And but to your point, I thought, well, I need something to validate this. So I need to actually put down some real, you know, solidify, because before it was super duper lean, meaning it was just literally conceptual products that we had put together with a group of my R&D specialists who made these menu items that were on par with anything you could get at a Starbucks or wherever else. We had the branding, everything was good. But we were like, okay, we need something that makes this more solid. So that's actually produced this ourselves, showed the restaurants how much sales we were able to make from just operating it in our ghost kitchens. And then if we show them that, they really can't say no. Then they'll, you know, be excited and they'll be ready to go. Long story short, that hypothesis did not work out.
Oh.
We got 4 kitchens. We operated the brand. The brand did pretty well. I mean, it was only coffee, literally just coffee and desserts. We're making about maybe 1,000 to 1,500 a day in sales, which is pretty good for coffee and desserts. But when we went back to these restaurants, the same ones who said that they were going to do it, all of a sudden now they have excuses for why they couldn't do it. They're like, well, the marketing would, how are we going to get people who want this brand that they don't know? It's not like this is Starbucks. It's not like this is something well known. Now we have to teach our staff how to use it. Now we have to think about ordering it from you guys. Now
But didn't you talk to them about this?
Yes.
So you had talked to them about this. You said, would you be interested in this? And they said, heck yeah, why not? And then when it comes down to give me money, they got cold feet.
That's right. So point of the story is, I could be mad at that and be like, man, oh my God, they messed up my hypothesis. I thought I had this perfect thing and it was gonna be this huge thing. I have so many restaurants I can partner with, blah, 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 blah. But the truth is, it led me to my next best idea, which was pivot. Okay, well, it's tough running a restaurant. It's tough knowing what's the right projects to work on. It's tough to know, should you bring in a brand and all of these things that come up with trying to, be a restaurant owner, especially when you're trying to bring it from abroad into another country. And so I've always done a lot of consulting for brands that are interested in the Korean market. They've called me up and said, hey, what's the viability like in Korea? And for the most part, I would always just say, it's a really tough market. Think twice before you do it. And I'd get paid, and that was the end of it. But then I started thinking to myself, what if I do a more systemized version of it? And so I started having more longer conversations with these guys. And so the F&B brands would ask me stuff like, well, if you were to do it, how would you do it? And I was like, well, you should do it like this. And then they started saying, why don't you do it for us? Like, me? I'm not some big Tejikop. I'm not this big SPC, CJ, or any of that.
Which is interesting, because I remember this version of Jason saying, I just want a burrito. I don't want to be the...
Right.
So even after launching multiple businesses, this part of you is still here.
Yeah. It's never
still here.
It's a part of me. And so I don't want to ever get too big for my britches, like a Southern person would say. I feel like it's important that you kind of maintain who you are, and also not say that you're too small or you're not qualified, but just be thoughtful of reality. And so I told him point blank, I'm not that guy. But if you want my version of this, I can do my version. And I convinced at least 30 F&B brands to let me test their brands in the Korean market in a way where it's win-win for both sides. They get presence in a new country. They get an opportunity to give this, chance to have customers in Korea experience their brand. They get a chance to make some extra money because I will be operating it and I will be paying them a royalty fee, but it's less risk. They don't have to spend $3 million on a huge building in one of the real estate, places here. And so they're into it, I'm into it, and it all started from this whole, could be a failure, coffee thing, because what they liked was I had the 4 kitchens already set up. They're like, oh, you already got kitchens set up? So you mean you can get started immediately. You can start making our products in your kitchens and just start having them for delivery only, and we can get a market research that way. And I was like, absolutely we can. So again, sometimes when you think you waste time or you wasted resources, it actually is, it's more to the story than that.
I think that's such a great thing. And it's kind of fun, the fact that like this all came from, actually wait, was Shuttle Delivery, was that your first business? The second?
Second.
Okay. So, well, that messes up what I was gonna say. I'm gonna pretend that's your first business. I'm just gonna pretend.
Go for it. That's my first
selective hearing.
Most important one.
So your first business.
I'm listening, please.
And, your first business, second. It started from this idea of, I want a burrito, and this ain't me, and I'm gonna prove to someone that this ain't me by talking with others and just trying to convince myself to talk myself out of it. But like, there's all these like ripple effects that has happened because of that. And just like what you just said, like you asked them, they said they like it, the kitchens and whatnot, and kind of screwed you. You could say it. So I think this all goes back to kind of like the original things that we were talking about, is your perspective. Oh, these people, they screwed me. These Koreans, they screwed me. Screw them, and then you can kind of go through the bitter route. Or you can say, okay, well, what can I learn from this? Are there other opportunities? And so it's like at a kind of like a fork in the road. You can either go bitter, and then that's just a negative cycle.
Yep.
Or you can just, it goes down a little bit. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
But it's like, but what other things? And then you searching, and then you catch something, and boom, so they start diverging.
That's right.
Very, very, and then
That's
this is
right.
just one event.
Yeah.
Imagine if you have a mindset of always, there is almost no waste.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, fine. Someone can probably come up with something that is
For
a
sure.
waste, but that's kind of extreme. But in general, if you have a mindset of there is no waste, everything I'm doing is learning. I'm just compounding my learning, and it's just like compound interest. It doesn't go like this. It's not linear. It's exponential.
Absolutely. 100%. I always tell people what I want is like this utility belt that just has these lessons and these learnings that I've accumulated throughout my years, and I can just rely on them when I need them. Oh, I remember doing something like that when we started this business. Or I remember when I learned about that when I did this thing. And so now I've been a part of all these different projects and so many different opportunities to where nothing really throws me off. And of course, I still go through imposter syndrome just like anybody else. When those F&B brands, these are global $5 billion a year businesses.
They're that big.
They're huge businesses.
Oh, I
and
thought
they're
they were like
telling
mom
me,
and pop stores.
hey, we trust you with our brand. Take it and do your thing with it. I'm like, you sure me? I'm the guy. And I think to myself, well, I have those lessons. Am I the guy who can maybe do it? But I might not be the guy, but I know people within my network who can do it. And as long as I can piece those together, I'm adding value.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting, this idea of imposter syndrome. Like, I was at this like startup event, and this is where the learning entrepreneur concept came. I was in Daejeon, and I was just like needed someone to talk about a few topics. So I was talking about this, and I was talking to one of them, and I was talking about identity. And I recently read Atomic Habits. Have you ever heard that book?
No.
So it's just basically about habits and stuff. And what most people focus on is the goal. Let's say I want to start a business. Okay, cool. Then they think about the action. Okay, I gotta talk to customers. I gotta set up an entity, stuff like that. But what they're saying is what he's saying, like, well, actually, you don't want just action. You want habits, because it's continual action. Because one action oftentimes is not enough. And not only that, you don't need just one habit. You need a series of habits. And so let's call that a system of habits. So even if you thought that far along, that's pretty still good. Like, oh yeah, you're thinking more than the average person. But there's a level deeper than that. And I thought this is kind of very interesting. It says, what's deeper than that? What drives which habits you go after is your identity, your beliefs. So if you believe, I am not technical, I'm not a businessman, I just want a burrito. If that's what you believe, then your actions, your habits, your systems will lead to a certain goal, which is you're not gonna start a business. But if you believe, so after you had a certain number of times where you didn't believe it, but you did it and it proved yourself wrong, over time, your sense of belief started changing.
Absolutely.
Inside, you're like, maybe I am someone who can do this. And so then, even though that part of you is still there, is like, Jason, you're a freaking idiot. The other part's like, yeah, but we do have shuttle delivery and we do have these other things. So why don't we give it a shot? And it's like almost a negotiation internally. And you're like, all right, let's give it a shot. And maybe that fails. And the person's like, I told you, what a catastrophe. I'm such an idiot. And the other one's like, well, maybe, but I think there's something here. Let's look. And so your identity, your belief drives your actions, your habits, your systems, which leads to your goal.
Absolutely.
And so we had talked about this topic, and then I was talking to one woman who is an entrepreneur, and she's like, I'm like, so we were having a time of reflection. And she said, I often feel I'm not an entrepreneur. And the person next to her was like, what? You're totally, when I think of entrepreneur, I think of you. And she said, you launch businesses. And she's like, well, I mean, I do have that, but I'm not as successful as all these people. And I feel imposter syndrome. And I think that's so interesting because that just came out of your lips.
Yeah.
That you feel like an imposter.
Yeah, for sure.
And the first interview that I did with a friend who didn't even start a business, he's just thinking about trying to be a content creator. But even then, he feels imposter, like the syndrome. And the question is like, why do we feel this way? Even though, okay, if you have no experience, then you can just say, maybe I'm just curious and you try to do it, right? But people can look to you. You're successful, you have several businesses, you have all this stuff. It is crazy that you would feel like an imposter. How is that possible? What would you say to them?
I think it's for everyone, because the truth is, comparison is the thief of all joy, and we all do it. We compare ourselves to, well, I've done this. I've done a $10 million a year business, but that dude's doing $100 million a year business. And the $100 million a year business guy saying, but that dude's doing $1 billion a year business. And the billion, I mean, dude, if Trump, he's a guy who, the ultimate imposter syndrome, because I was watching the interview with him the other day, and the funniest part of the interview was this part to me. He was like, well, you know, a lot of my friends are businessmen, and I deal with a lot of businessmen, and they're very successful businessmen, and I'm successful, but they're successful, and they've got a lot of money. But you know what they say to me? I could never do what you do. He's still dealing with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, because he's still comparing.
I'm comparing myself to these guys. They're richer than me, but I can always tell them, but you've never been the president of the United States before. So he still can hold that over them.
And he's comparing himself probably to other presidents.
You're right. So his thing is, well, I have that over these guys. No matter if they have $100 billion or $200 billion, and I only have $1 billion, they can't say, oh, well, I'm more successful than you, because I can always just give them the ace card. Well, you never were the president. And that's what they want more than their money. So again, we just keep playing these games with each other. And honestly, we have to try to stop, because there's no benefit to it.
Why do you say there's no benefit?
I think that when you, again, to go back to on a very cliche term, comparison is the thief of all joy. If you compare yourself to anyone else and try to think, well, they must be better than me, or they must be smarter than me, or they must be X, Y, and Z better than, you know, my situation. You don't know their situation.
Yeah, man.
You don't know anybody's situation except for your own, really.
Yeah.
You don't know what is going on in other people's lives. And so it's better to just focus on the learning. Focus on the learning, get good at things that you want to get good at, put all your energy on just improving.
Why? But why do you say learning is the antidote to that?
Learning is the antidote because no matter what comes from it, it's always upside. Always. There's never been a time where learning is pain.
That's the downside.
That's the downside. But the upside is you get to take that with you no matter where you go for the rest of your life.
So it is like you get the $1 gain. It's not even a $1 gain. Let's say it's a $10 gain.
But the point you made earlier is it always adds up more than what you put in. You get $1 of learning, it just, you know, it's like when we put it in the stock market, it'll keep improving and just the value just outweighs. So if you take the moment to say, well, you know, Sam said atomic habits. Atomic habits. If you actually take the time to say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and read that too. Now you might say, well, I didn't get as much from it as Sam got. Maybe they only get 20% from it, where you were like, man, this is a life-changing book. I would say that's up there as a very impactful book for me. Well, 20%, it adds up. And now you get to add that to your tool belt, and now you get to use that for whatever situation that might help.
And I think there's like, especially in the world of like entrepreneurship, but it's not limited to the world of entrepreneurship. No. I think it's in general. There is different types of learning. And I think here in Korea, they are really good at learning, like books, lectures, accumulating new knowledge. Like when I came here, I was like, oh, you know, maybe I can bring some of my learnings from America, like how to implement OKRs, objective key results, like stuff like that. And they already knew about all of it. I'm like, dang, I guess I don't need to come here. But then I realized there's a difference between book knowledge and like learning through experience.
For sure.
Learning through experience. And it's like a total different type of learning. Now, I feel like lately I've been getting into the world of, have you ever heard of indie hackers?
No.
Okay, so indie hackers is this thing that it's like a new movement. Like I'd say a few years ago, one of the top people is this guy named Peter Levels. So what he does is he taught himself how to code. He went to Bali. He's just like, I'm going to teach myself how to code. He actually spent time in Korea. I think it was like a KU maybe, was studying abroad. But he's kind of like, I'm going to live in Asia. He's in Bali. He just started up his business. He launched like 100 businesses, and almost majority of failed except like 4, and those made enough money for him. But the concept of indie hackers is that you keep shipping, and eventually
I
you're
love
going to
it.
hit on something.
I love it.
So I love the part because what they're essentially talking about is learning through action.
Yep.
Learning through action.
Yep.
Now, this is why I think the cookbook approach is, you got to be careful about that. Now, their problem starts lying with people, and they build in public, so they're kind of very open about how much money they're making and whatever. Their problem is, I think they just throw crap against the wall without learning as much. Like they basically launch something instead of like kind of spending some time of
follow through.
Like, yeah, follow through and then figure out like what went wrong. Should we try to iterate? A lot of times what I see in the indie hacker community is, okay, time for my next one, time for number 2, time for number 3, time for number 4.
It's more a numbers game.
It's more a numbers game. And so once again, I don't think that's bad, but I'm thinking like, what is better?
Yeah.
What is better? And so then I look at kind of big company tech, and what they're good at is doing this kind of thing, thinking about iterations. How do you think more strategically? I think that may be a little bit heavy. So lately I've been thinking about what is the amalgamation of both. Of like, and even that, it can't be a cookbook because every situation is different.
Yes.
So you have to get better at, like you said, gathering the tools in your tool belt, knowing when to use when. So yeah, and so like an example of what I was thinking about was when you talk to those people and you ask them whether they liked it. A recent thing that I learned from this book called $1 Million Weekend by Noah Kagan, a serial entrepreneur, kind of like indie hacker-ish. I loved his very lightweight way of verifying. His thing is, I will only believe the customer if they give me money.
Yeah,
so
I love it.
His version of that would have been, let's say, for $100 a month, I will do blah, 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 and it only requires 10 minutes of your time. And they'll be like, great. And you're like, great. I'm looking for 10 partners right now. First come, first serve. Are you in? And then if they're like, oh, and they probably would like, oh, I can't. And this is the beauty of his approach, which I really love. He's like, if they say yes, you just got a sale.
Yeah.
If they say no, even better. Because he has like these 4 follow-on questions. The 4 follow-on questions is, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Oh, why not? And then they say, oh, it's because this.
Too expensive.
Okay, sure. Too expensive. Okay. And then the second question is, okay, totally respect that. Is there anyone that you know that this would be a great fit for? So now you're just thinking, did I get the wrong person? But the idea is still valid. And then maybe they'll give it to you, maybe not. And then the third question is, okay, totally get it's not for you. Respect that. Can you just do me a favor? What in this offer needs to change that would make it a no-brainer for you? They're like, oh, well, I have this issue. That's something else.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, great. Just one more question. What would you pay for that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I saw this approach.
I
loved it.
I love it.
Isn't it so good? And it's so simple. And he's like, you don't need a product or service to have it. You can just pre-sell it too. You're like, hey, this is just an idea that I have. Like he was trying to sell jerky in a box, and same thing. He was scratching his own itch. He's like, I want jerky.
Yeah.
And or it was somebody else, but he just wanted to see if other people had it, and just sent emails like, hey, I'm thinking about it. I got a bulk order, about 10 people. If you want it, PayPal me. Send me the money, $10. Only people who send me money, I'm gonna agree. And if they didn't get enough, he's like, okay, other people don't have the idea.
And sometimes that, these are hypotheses. They're not like, they don't prove that you're smart or dumb. They're just hypotheses.
I think this ties to our earlier point of people make the misunderstanding that when they learn something about you, they attribute that to your core identity. We not only do that for other people, we do it to ourselves.
Yeah, we're hard on ourselves.
We're hard on ourselves. And so if what was, even if we told ourselves, this is an experiment, Sam, don't worry about it, it doesn't turn out well, you say, I am an idiot. It's not that this hypothesis didn't turn out the way I want. You said, you attribute this as a core identity of you, as a judgment of who you are as a human.
Yes.
I suck.
Yes.
I am not an entrepreneur. I am an idiot. And then you retreat back to safety.
And that goes the whole imposter syndrome. We think no one else is dealing with that except for us. We're the only ones who come up with these dumb things that no one else is going to pay us money to fix. And so that's it. That's what business is just overcoming that fear, overcoming that insecurity, and letting yourself be vulnerable. You know, and it took a while to get comfortable with that. Being that I've put so many businesses out there and people get to know, oh, you're a part of the shuttle guys,
Yeah.
or you're a part of Cake Shop, the club, or you're a part of Crave, the catering company, or you're a part. These things start to become a part of you. And you don't want to be vulnerable when people say, oh, that thing sucks, or they're
Yeah.
too this, or they too that. So people don't like that part of entrepreneurship, but that's the part you have to accept too.
And I think, like, going back to what you said, the antidote is this idea of learning.
Mm-hmm.
So that if you can attribute your identity as not the, because entrepreneur is such a loaded term. It's like Bezos. It's like, you know, I'm not this successful entrepreneur, even if you have successes under your belt. They're billion-dollar companies. Who am I?
Right.
Entrepreneur. A learning entrepreneur is what you said. It's the antidote. It's, I'm just happy to be learning.
Yeah.
And the results might be a successful business, or even better, I might have validated that this idea is not good, but I've learned this other interesting thing.
Well, the cool part about entrepreneurship is it just keeps building on itself. So I always tell people, the fun part to me is that I get to stay in the game. I just want to be in the game.
Ooh, what does that mean? What does that mean?
I like being in the game because the game unlocks a lot of cool doors that don't always look so obvious when you're not in the game. When you're in the game, you get a chance to explore these things that, you know, could be even bigger or more impactful to you than you could ever dream, right? But that's what entrepreneurship is. It's building a foundation, and then people can trust you. Oh, he's an entrepreneurship guy. He likes to, you know, he likes projects. He likes working on things. Let me tell him about my project. And then they will tell you, if you like it, and if you think you can add value, hey man, I can add value in this way, this way, this way, because this is my background in this. Great, why don't we try to work together on this? That's what being in the game can do for you. If you're not in the game, people don't, you know, my big thing also is top of mind. You have to be at the top of people's minds for certain, you know, things that your core competencies. And the more core competencies you can create from entrepreneurship, that's from learning. And so when people think, hey man, I'm thinking about doing a podcast, who should I call? That's my guy, because he makes the guests comfortable. He's probably got all the right equipment. He's probably knows all the right people. His network is crazy. You're top of mind. Where if someone didn't even know you were doing it because you tried it once, you didn't follow through, you didn't get as many views as you liked, and you just quit. And so you're not top of mind anymore. So you might have got this amazing opportunity to interview, who knows, somebody from, you know, Elon Musk wants to come into Korea. Who knows?
Who knows?
And then they're just like, who do I know who's doing podcasts? Oh, I heard Sam was doing it. He told me he was doing one. Let me just call him, see if he's doing it. You're top of mind now. Now you're getting that cool opportunity that could change your life.
And I think one big component of top of mind is this kind of concept of learning entrepreneur, because I think that protects you. It's almost a vaccine against all these forces that try to kill that in you.
Dude, not to take it away from the entrepreneurship,
No,
but
do
I
it.
think that,
Go for it.
So I have one of my close friends, we went to college together. He's a rapper. Now he went very niche. He went super niche. And people would always tell him, you're doing the wrong thing. That's not hip hop. That's not the way you do it. He went into this kind of like spirituality, Christian. He calls himself a rapper who's a Christian and not a Christian rapper. Okay. Because a Christian rapper is like somebody who's,
it's a loaded term.
Just, you know what I mean?
It sucks.
So
it's basically you're a rapper, but you suck.
Right, basically. And so he's always had this mentality of, I'm going to make it in that way. And it took him 15, 20 years, and now he's getting mentioned from some of the greatest rappers of all. Kendrick Lamar is name dropping him in songs.
Really?
So it's like, it's funny if you just stay the course and not worry about the accolades. You don't worry about the arbitrary things like, well, how much records did you sell? Or, well, how many stadiums have you? Like, just stay the course. Are you doing what you like to do? Are you still in the game? Are you recognized by your peers? Do people have you as top of mind he was in? And so that creates opportunities for him to where now he's lived his wildest dreams. He's a fellow at Harvard. He's a professor teaching hip hop discussions at, you know, big universities. He does huge auditorium talks about, you know, what he is about in his story. If you would have just said, okay, I'll listen to the masses and If I don't reach the same level of success as these other guys, then I'm not, I have no value. But he didn't listen to that. I think that same goes to entrepreneurship and anything in life.
Oh, totally, totally. And it's I'm reading this book called Flow. It's basically the concept of flow. Time just goes away and whatever, right? And I'm starting to meld different ideas now that I'm talking with you about this. And then there's so the concept of flow of so when you're in flow, people get addicted to the feeling because what happens is it requires it's challenging enough. So the scientists say it has to be 4% harder than what you can deal with. Too much anxiety, too little boredom, just in that Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it is, what happens is it requires 100% of your engagement. So let's say you're running and you're in a competition. You're not even thinking about winning or losing. You're just in the moment. You're in the moment. That's all you're focused on. And you just feel like one with the environment. Like they interviewed a lot of different people and they're just like, they all describe it very similar. When I'm dancing, when I'm cooking, when I'm whatever, I'm in it. Time just flows around me because I am just in it. And I lose time and people get addicted to that, right? Now, this means that it's very desirable. It's very desirable. It becomes now there could be bad flow, like gambling and stuff, but let's just talk about the good ones, okay? So now, flow. Go back to Atomic Habits. The components of a habit is there's some type of signal that happens, some type of cue, an action, and a reward. So here, like the reward becomes that sense of flow. You're like, I love it, and the cue could be just like I don't know. Oh, it's time for my swim, and then I go swimming, and I'm just in flow, and I love it. And over time, it creates a desire, and just keeps. It's a self-fulfilling, virtuous cycle. So you create this habit, and you probably create a system of other habits, and it eventually leads to this.
Yes.
This goal, which, by the way, when you're in flow, you're not like, I want to be number one. I got to be number one. I got to be here. That's using your willpower, and that drains your energy. Flow, you're so engaged in the activity that you're not even thinking about any of that.
I've been telling that so often these days. I probably sound like a broken record, but I'm like, man, we got to get away from results-driven, success or results-driven activities. It's about the activity itself. And I believe that. And the older I get, the more I believe that, because you stop worrying about like, okay, well, what was the result of the activity I did? It's just, man, I was doing this activity and I learned some stuff and it was cool and I had a fun time talking to a friend and now we know each other. And it's like, well, what's the result? How many views did you guys get? Or did you get any deals because of that? Or did you get deal flow because of that? Or did you connect? Sometimes it's just, okay, let's talk some ideas out. And maybe that's the activity and the activity is good enough.
The first video that I did as an experiment, just because I want to act, right? What often happens with me, like I started kind of doing some of these videos, and then I would do it through, I think, willpower. And at some point, it didn't become important enough. I just stopped.
Yeah.
I stopped after like 20 videos. Stopped. And this time, I did the video. I shared it with a bunch of people. And my wife was like, why are you doing this? Like, honey, I'm like, what you think though? What you think? She's like, I think it's great that you're just trying it. And you should just have fun. I'm like, but what do you think? She's like, is that important though? Like, isn't it? And someone else said that too. Like, she's like, why are you doing it? Like, I think you should just get a few numbers and just have fun with it. And I realized what was started off as fun, like learning Adobe Premiere Pro and figuring out this microphone stuff. It started off as fun, but it got hijacked because of one of my fears, because I looked at our bank account and I'm like, that's not a number that's going to sustain us. And I started getting scared.
Yeah.
And that fear started thinking, well, how do I generate buzz? And I need to do this, and I need to do that. I need to get this podcast. Okay, if I'm going to interview, I need to like get a certain amount of views. And it started spiraling. And I'm like, this ain't fun anymore. This is like, it's sucking the joy out of it. And what I realized, and so the second one, the example of the podcast I sent you, that one, I was talking to him right before I started shooting. I was like, I think my realization is, I just got to find something that's fun.
Yep.
Because there was this teacher that said she homeschools, and she said, I do things that are fun with the kids. But she's like, and people think like that's a bad thing. Like in Korea, she's a Korean homeschool teacher. And so Korean parents are like, they need to be like studying. dude, you need to be like learning English, second language, calculus when you're younger. But she's like, that's not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just let them have fun.
Yep.
But it's a little bit strategic. And she said, I can look at a child having fun, and then I can tell you what his superpower is. And I'm like, dang. At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. I thought it was a novel idea. But now I'm connecting it to flow.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having fun, if it's fun, you're in flow. It's going to become a habit naturally. Yep. And a habit that continues yields some results.
So many results. Dude, this has been great, man. I know we talked about a lot of different things. It's kind of almost like we were all over the place, but it felt connected too. Like we kept this theme of like commonality and doing things not because we're trying to just gain something, but there's lessons along the way. And so I got some lessons from just listening today. So this has been really cool.
One recommendation, I ask for the same from you. Mm-hmm. One recommendation actually tying all this is this. Have you ever heard the book Infinite Game?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's what I was thinking right here. I think what you're saying about measuring and, you know, as an entrepreneur, I need to do this. As a father, I need to do this. As a husband, I need to do this. When I go into a networking session, I got to talk to X, Y, Z and get this. That's a finite game. I'm constantly measuring, comparing, the thief of all joy. I'm constantly comparing versus the infinite game of just enjoying the process. Just enjoying
the game.
It's fun.
It's fun. We're all in the game.
And that's why I record these videos. I'm just like, dude, it's fun. I enjoy it. The people I talk to seem to enjoy it.
I did enjoy
it.
And
even if there's one view and it's just, when I point at the camera, I'm basically pointing to me and Jason, who's in it. And then Tommy, my previous guy, he said he likes this long form stuff. Okay. My wife doesn't really enjoy the long form. So she'll watch the shorts. I'll create the shorts.
Okay.
But what I'm realizing is like, I just got off of a coaching project and now I was putting pressure on myself. I'm like, I gotta find the next deal. I gotta prospect. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't I just have some time to just do things that are fun?
Just do it.
Just do things that are fun. And I think that will naturally emerge into opportunities. But the most important thing that I think what you said was, number one, getting started. But number two, just having fun and enjoying the curiosity and learning, like falling in love with learning. As children, we were sometimes put in an education system. I think Korea is tough. It's a very tough education system. A lot of willpower. And even in America, I don't think there's like tons of great examples. But if you can figure out how to love learning, just that joy. Like I see my children, and we're right now reading the Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe, like the Chronicles of Narnia. At first, he was kind of doing it as a chore because he has to read 45 minutes. I felt like a chore too, to be honest. But then at some point, it started getting fun. And now, my daughter's next to me, and she's like, "Oh, it's time for Narnia," and they're just enjoying reading.
That's beautiful,
right? And I'm like, how can we maximize our positive association with learning? So much so that it's not 10% better than the potential fears that we have, but it's 100x better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Dude, thank you for having me. Really, this has been amazing. I'm really grateful for this.
Yeah, I love it, man. Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Of course, yeah.
I don't really have a way to end it, so we'll just end it like this.
Okay, I like it.
Enjoy the conversation.
For sure.
Enjoy the palace.
It looks lovely.
I'll figure out a better way to mention it. I'll learn.
Okay.
I'll learn.
I like it. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Just keep learning.